Good afternoon, my hyenas. Welcome to another Team and Ambitions roundtable discussion. I'm coining the phrase now, Team and Talk. Let's go. Your regularly scheduled host, Andrew, the lore doctor of Lorcana, unfortunately tripped and fell into a wild wildebeest stampede, and I have taken over as your wonderful host for the foreseeable only this episode. But we did not forget him. He is currently one of our guest stars. Today, we will be discussing the topic of the Toronto DLC, a DLC that just happened in the beautiful Toronto, Canada. We will be discussing not only our experiences through the Toronto DLC, but also maybe some tips, some tricks, and any other valuable information. But before all that, first off, I would like to apologize that we were a week late from our last video. We tried to post weekly on Friday. Unfortunately, the Labor Day weekend got the best of us and we couldn't record, but rest assured we will be back to our foreseeable Friday scheduling. How are y'all doing? How's your day going? How's everything going in your neck of the woods?
I'm doing well. Tired, good, a lot of traveling. Got to play some Lorcana today. Had a great time playing Blue Purple.
Yeah,
So
I was
getting the
there. It
rest of the
was
deck.
it was crazy. It was actually crazy to watch.
It's fun. It had the deck has legs. I don't know if it's a top tier deck, but it's there's definitely some play for it.
I am doing good myself. I got to play some Lorcana yesterday. Did a little bit more limited format. We did a draft, a chaos draft. We'll probably talk about that in a future video. Wonderful format, lots of fun. Really tests your ability to play a bunch of different cards. Took a break today. Missed out on locals with these two fine gentlemen, but I'm doing great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I heard, the Chaos Draft went really well for you, and some say you might pull the foil Rapunzel, Road Around the Block is.
That was the card of the night, and I think in the 3 matches I played, she drew 11 cards.
You know what they say, if it's in foil, it will perform better than a non-foil.
This
Uh,
video is sponsored by Light TCG. If you're looking for a family-run trading card game store that specializes in Lorcana singles, look no further than Light TCG. He is based out of the Pacific Northwest, just like us, and he's been a very important part of our community. If you're looking for any Lorcana singles, head on over to his website at lighttcg.shop. That is lighttcg.shop, and use our promo code TAA5 for 5% off your first Lorcana order. Thank you so much, Light TCG, for sponsoring this video.
But yeah, let's get on to tonight's topic, the Toronto DLC. Now, I myself did not attend, but obviously you guys did. So I kind of want to overall a general experience because I have actually never attended a DLC, so I don't know what it's like at all. So, and both of you, I believe this wasn't your first DLC, but what was kind of your overall general feel from like the travel, visiting Canada? Was it your first time visiting there? I've never been there myself. So like, yeah, just kind of give us the overall general feel of DLC, being in Canada, the whole experience.
So this is my second time traveling to Canada. I was actually there a few months ago with family to see Niagara Falls.
Beautiful.
Um, yeah, gorgeous. Absolutely should visit if you have the opportunity to. This is my first DLC, so I took a red eye to try and fix my sleep schedule since they are 3 hours ahead of us. The city is fantastic. It's very walkable, lots of places to explore. The DLC itself, it was good. I had a really good time. I am familiar with going to like large scale events, having played Magic previously.
Hmm.
So it ran pretty well. Registration opened on Friday. There was a short flurry of side events that you could sign up for before they rapidly sold out. Um, the main event on Saturday ran pretty much without a hitch. There may have been an issue very late into the evening, but up until that point in time, I had no problems whatsoever. I ended up going 3-3-3. I was
Hmm.
knocked out of day 2 in the 7th round, so pretty late. I secured my tickets and then I just played side events on Sunday before leaving on Monday. So I had a blast. I secured my hat, I secured my promo, and I think the most important thing was I secured my ticket to Seattle.
For those of you who are familiar with Magic, would you say that a DLC is kind of similar into the same vein as a Grand Prix or GP for Magic players, or like maybe a YCS or something of that caliber? Kind of the same sort of deal.
Yeah, well, 100%. I think the closest thing now would be like an SCG event. Um, I'm not sure if Commander Fests are really appropriate, but like old style GPs, yeah, it's the exact same thing. Side events, main event, they have a sitting area where you can watch the feature matches.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it's very similar if you've been to older style Magic GPs.
Okay, very interesting. And yeah, what about you, Andrew? You've been to Canada. Tell us your experience about the Toronto DLC.
Okay, so this is my second DLC. I was at DLC Chicago. Really
Mm.
enjoyed my time at the first DLC. It was a very interesting experience. I did come from a background of card gaming, but not to this scale. I think largely I was playing Pokemon in late 2000s when the tournaments, the bigger level tournaments, were maybe in the upper hundreds ish, but not a
Wow.
thousand. So this was a big jump for me to see a venue this big. Toronto also had an attendance of about 960. It was like
Mhm.
1,024, but 60 people didn't show. The experience itself, wonderful. I flew in on Friday morning. I'm an early riser, so leaving here in the Pacific Northwest really early and getting in at like 3 was super easy. Getting to the actual venue was super easy. There was a train that just took you right to the hotel where it was, which was pretty great.
Oh,
The actually obtaining the ticket or your badge to get in was super smooth. The side events on Friday, they made Friday relevant again, which is relevant for the first time, really. It used to be just show up, get your badge, and then hang out for a day. But now you can
mhm.
actually do vendor stuff. You can do the side events. There were vendors before, but now the side events really changed a lot of that. The main event, different than my wonderful friend Javier, I had not as good of an experience. I went in playing green purple on a more aggro build and did not do that well. I ran into a mirror match in the first round, and it was mirrored to basically counter the aggro matchup. So
Mm.
um, that was just an unfortunate matchup. And then the second round, I think I played green yellow and just got god handed twice. So by then I was 0-2-0 with no points going into round 3. I was thinking, all right, well, I could either continue this and try to get to 30 points, which is going to be a slog to get my 20 tickets, but I decided to drop. You can see my standing at the end of the tournament list, and start working towards tickets. So basically, since noon on Saturday, I was just trying to get tickets as fast as I can. It succeeded. I have a wonderful
Hey.
prize here as a result of my efforts. But no, that other than that little hiccup, amazing event. Toronto's an amazing city. I really enjoyed it. I went home on Sunday night and got home like very early in the morning, but overall a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, and I've seen those Cindy mats in person, and they are just gorgeous. Like
Yeah.
the foiling looks super nice. It looks super great. Before we move on, Andrew, I actually had a question. Did you notice a significant difference between the two DLCs? Was it run a little bit smoother? Was there? You said that they didn't have Friday events at Chicago, but they did at Toronto, right? So, any other changes or anything else that was different between the two events?
One of the big things that was amongst the community from the very first DLC in Atlanta was actually the table size. The tables weren't actually big enough to accommodate 2 playmats, or
Oh
wide enough
no.
rather. So they were oftentimes overlapping. They were very narrow tables. That didn't happen in Chicago, thankfully. Chicago was a pretty smooth event. I don't think the overall organization of the event was extremely smooth. Everything ran fairly on time. The event ended, I think, an hour earlier than Chicago did. So they've obviously learned from a lot of their errors. And it's the same amount of rounds. It's 9 rounds with a lunch break in the middle. So overall, very, very smooth event. They have a really great judging staff that's always around, easy to ask them questions. The venue itself was pretty big, and allowed easy access between both the grand venue and the vendors, and then the side event area. I think the biggest difference was what Javier said, which was at Chicago, the feature match didn't have an audience viewing area. It was just a room that was kind of blocked off. But at Toronto, it was like a full on, like there was rows of chairs where you could watch the feature match. And I watched Javier play.
Yeah.
And it was like really cool. Like I locked eyes with him across the way, and I'm like, oh my god, you're at the feature match, man. This is awesome. And then that happened, but that's okay. But no, it was really cool to just like sit and watch the gameplay. They had another monitor so you could actually see the top-down view of the cards. It was on a little delay, so you couldn't like relay information or anything. But it was really cool to be that close. It felt more like this was a spectacle. Whereas before it felt more like, okay, these are the feature matches, sure, but it's really more for the people on the stream or people watching at home than it is for the people there. And I think they've learned that tip.
That's definitely good, because I feel like what a lot of people don't really understand is that this is kind of like a sporting event, and the feature matches is basically watching the two teams play. And if I just paid tickets to not even see the teams play, it feels kind of lame for a sporting event. So I'm glad that they are realizing that it's also for people who are physically there to watch the event as well as people online, which is really cool. So I kind of want to get into, Team Ambitions is generally a competitive mindseted podcast. We are all competitive players trying to do the very best that we can. So I kind of want your guys' competitive insights at like challenge, not even just Toronto DLC, but DLCs in general. Talk about, you know, experiences, tips, tricks, everything that, somebody who's like, okay, I want to do my very best at a DLC. And take the experiences you took from Toronto and how we can transfer them into future DLCs.
I think the biggest thing I would say to start is play something that you are comfortable with. You are
Mm.
going to be stressing yourself out for 9 to 12 hours, constantly going through motions, permutations, decision trees in very stressful situations. So having playing something that you are familiar with, you know the lines, you know your matchups, will pay off dividends, because it's going to be 8 hours in where you've had a light snack for a lunch, you're playing for your tournament life, and the comfort that you are playing something that you know makes things a lot easier.
Mm.
Um, Going into the tournament, I had two decks that I brought with me that I was trying to figure out which ones I wanted to take. So we had a play test session the night before, and one of those decks I knew all the lines for. I knew every action that I needed to take. I knew what I needed to do when I needed to do it. The other one, I didn't. I felt stressed. I felt uncomfortable. I wasn't sure of what lines I needed to take, and it showed. So at the end of the playtest, I went with the deck that I knew that I was comfortable with and that I thought that I could do well with. I didn't do that well, but I probably had a better time than if I had gone in with something that I was not as familiar with, even if it may have been considered the better deck.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing to note that, like, sure, there is a metagame. There are good decks and great decks and stuff like that, but you can't just pick up a deck and expect to do well. There are nuances. There are people who are also playing the same deck as you who probably are playing it longer, and you're gonna stumble and fall. You can get great tools in your hands, but you may not know how to use them.
Yeah, exactly.
Echoing along those same lines is the same idea, which is that it's really really hard to outgame the system, like basically to metagame the metagame.
Mhm.
For all those who are a little bit wondering, like, what do we mean by a meta? A meta basically is like the game within a game, or like the environment at which like top decks are playing, like knowing like certain matchups, like what's the popular decks of the game. So like knowing the game within the game. But to take that another level above that, at the DLCs, people try to outgame the game and think, okay, well, if everyone's going to be playing Amber Steel, I should therefore counter with Blue Steel. But, well, what if everyone's going to try to counter Amber Steel? Should I try to go red purple to beat blue steel? Well, if everyone's going to be on red purple because they're trying to beat the amber steel and I know they're going to do it, well, maybe I should just play amber steel. So you just end up going in this endless loop of all these possibilities, and you will drive yourself mad. So if you have a color combination that you just feel super comfortable with, you're going to be 100% better off understanding how to play the lines and adapting your deck to a poor matchup than you are playing a completely new deck in a good matchup. I think knowing your defense strategies against even a bad matchup has a lot of value compared to trying to perfect the lines on a fairly unfamiliar deck or one that you just don't know as well. So trust your gut, trust that sense that you have put that time and effort into your deck style and your play style, and then run with it. I'm a prime example of that. I don't typically play green purple. It was a bit of a meta call because I thought there was going to be more red purple, and it's effectively an auto win against red purple, and I didn't see it. I saw a mirror and green yellow, and both of those are horrible matchups. Any green at all was going to be a nightmare for my own deck. So a bit of an overcall, and I didn't stay around long enough to figure out if that was really the overcall or what I would have seen a different matchup. So don't try to outgame the system. Trust what you know and do your best. At the end of the day, if the cards fall right and it's meant to be yours, it's going to be meant to be yours. You just got to play them the right way.
Definitely agreed. And I'm curious because obviously you said, both of you said, like, hey, know your deck. You'll obviously go farther with the deck you know than the deck you don't know. How important is, let's say, play versus draw or deck matchups when you are considering what is the best I can do at a DLC? Is it that I just dodge all my bad matchups and then I'll auto win, or is it I always win game one and I'll do well? Like, give me some nuances about what it takes to be a competitive player, other than just knowing your deck very well.
So I'll start by attacking the first topic that you brought up, which is the idea of should I go first, should I go second? The math is, if anything, more evident lately that going first is a significant advantage to your success for every deck. Now, with this 2-game format, the question has arisen for a while, should I go first the first game or should I go first the second game? And I'm still of the mindset that you should go first the first game for 3 reasons. One, you want to start off strong. You don't want to be in a situation where you're down a game and you need to get that second game in order to tie. That is a horrible feeling. 2, you want to win game 1 so you have the pressure on them to make that same mistake, and then you have a better chance to sweep, which gets you to 7 points, and that is critical in this format. Absolutely critical. And then number 3, the theory is that game 2 is a third tiebreaker. At no point has it become relevant. It did not determine the final bubble spots for Chicago. It did not determine the final bubble spot for Toronto. At the end of the day, it is a third tiebreaker, which you would need tens of thousands of people for that to probably be relevant. And in 1,000 players, it's probably just not statistically important enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hear the argument a lot. Oh, I want to go first in the second game because we are both blind mulliganing or blind altering. And that way in the game 2, I know what I'm playing against, so therefore I can alter my hand better than my opponent can, and that way I can win that second game, which counts as a tiebreaker. But ultimately, I do agree. I think it is generally better to go first because of the first turn advantage. So that way, when both players at a disadvantage, when they can't alter their hands or they don't know what to alter correctly, you still have that first turn advantage. Of course, you could still lose while going first, but you want to give every edge possible.
Luck is always going to play a factor.
Yeah.
You may go through your entire tournament and miss everyone that you're hoping to play against, or conversely, go through your entire tournament and miss the deck that you dread fighting the most, right? The 13-year-old that won one of the Sunday constructed events with blue purple He didn't fight any aggro deck at all. He just avoided them entirely. It was his tournament to win. Andrew, playing his green purple, went up against his two worst matchups, just one right after another to start the tournament, and I guess end the tournament. Like, there is going to be an element of luck. Your deck choice can minimize that, I guess. If you have something that doesn't rely on interacting with your opponent, like an aggro deck, you may have an easier time with your matchups overall, because it's basically you're going to play the game that you play, and it's up to your opponent to be able to stop you. The worry and effort required to interact with your opponent is minimized, so it's, less stressful. I managed to do well playing red purple, beating both the Steel Song matchups that I went up against, and a lot of people would generally consider Steel Song to have a large advantage over
Yeah.
red purple.
Mhm.
But knowing what my game plan is and putting it into action effectively helped me win both
Mhm.
of those matchups.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think it's necessarily as rock paper scissors as a lot of people want it to be, where it's just like avoid your bad matchups, get all your good matchups, and you can't win or you can't lose or whatever. Um, there is an element of skill that's involved in it, which I like ties back to being comfortable with your deck, right? There is going to be an element of skill, but it's not as end all be all as a lot of people would have you think.
So would you say that because one of the things I think that's great about Lorcana is that while there are bad matchups, it's still very navigatable. People who like have played Pokemon, for example, where it's a bad matchup, it's just generally kind of unwinnable. Um, would you say that even knowing, kind of going to your point, knowing your deck better than their opponent knowing their deck, even if it's considered a bad matchup, can still get you out of the weeds, get you out of the forest?
Oh, absolutely. Um, I personally like to play decks with a lot of decision trees, a lot of potential paths that you can take, right? So it has a very low floor, high ceiling style of gameplay where a mistake that you make early on can affect you at towards the end of the match. As a result, there ends up being a lot of play with your opponents and whatever they're playing. So I personally feel that with enough skill, you can navigate bad matchups well and make the easy matchups that much easier.
Yeah, I think that's something great about the game. Kind of moving on from the main competitive scene of the main event, I'm kind of curious from both of you. What about? I'm not interested in all that competitive main event stuff. I'm a side man. I went to Toronto because I just wanted to draft. Can you kind of tell me about the feel of side events? Kind of walk me through, like, how do I sign up for side events? Does my ticket give me free side events? Kind of everything.
So all the side events are paid. You have to pay for them. They're not included in your ticket.
Mhm.
The badge guarantees you entry into the hall to compete in these events. They fire throughout the day. There's both on demand and scheduled events that you can enter. Um, Varying lengths, varying levels of rule enforcement. Um,
Mm.
a lot of the time on Saturday, as Andrew can probably attest to, it's a much more relaxed setting because everyone who is super competitive is in the main event at the moment. Sunday tends to be a wider spread. Overall, the people who it's just people who enjoy Lorcana, right? People who want to
Right.
do Lorcana. Maybe they didn't get into the main event. Maybe all they wanted to do was just relax, play a couple of drafts, meet some new people, do some trades. Um, so it's a really good time. You don't need to be of a competitive mindset to go to a challenge and enjoy yourself.
Mm.
Truth be told, after finding out what the parameters for Vegas are, I kind of wish I had signed up as an attendee and not a main event competitor. Because it sounds like the real fun is going to be doing side events all weekend.
So I think we should be prudent in kind of distinguishing the two sets of side events. There are scheduled side events, and then there are on demand side events. The scheduled side events, those tickets go on sale on Melee, usually the week of the event. So it is, they announce it on the Pro Play event management Discord and on the Facebook page. You should probably join them if you're going to join that Discord if you are going to any of the future DLCs, because that's how you will know. That happens at a very random time, oftentimes like 7 p.m. on a random day of the week of the DLC. Sunday sells out within minutes. Similar to getting your ticket for a DLC, it will sell out within the first couple of minutes of the event launching. And they are capped. There is competitive constructed. That one is like a high risk, high reward constructed event for Sunday. That's where you can win up to 300 tickets if you place first. That 13-year-old that Javier was talking about, he won 300 tickets for placing first in that competitive constructed. That's 3 of these things, and even a promo or 2. So not a small prize at all. Definitely holds up to some of the main event. I mean, not all of them, obviously, but a fair reward for a weekend. There's sealed, which is just opening 6 packs and making a deck. There is constructed that isn't the competitive, the main competitive constructed. That's just like a normal constructed event that's just 3 rounds, and you win tickets for every round you win. And that happens throughout Saturday and Sunday. The on-demand events are ones that as soon as they have enough people to fire a pod, the pods being 8 people usually, they go, and it's just ready to go. Now you might be thinking, well, isn't that great? Isn't that advantageous? No. The prize payout for the on-demand events are much worse, unless you win them. If you can win an on-demand draft, I think the ticket reward is like 11 or 12 tickets. I have to remind myself of the actual payout. But if you lose in round 1, you get 1, I think, for all your efforts. And 1 ticket for a potentially $30 or $40 event is not a good return. You do get packs out of it, but it's not a great return for tickets. You did just use an hour in that draft and another hour to play that match. So that is 2 hours that you didn't use getting tickets. So if tickets are your goal, on-demand is not often the best route unless you feel super confident in your abilities to do that. There is on-demand constructed. There is on-demand something called Pack Rush, which we'll talk about in the next video. Basically, it's a special format where you open 2 packs and play a modified version of Lorcana. You both get a ticket for entering, and the winner gets another ticket. So not a bad way to kind of churn out those 1 or 2 last tickets that you need to get a Cindy promo or a Rapunzel promo or a hat or whatever it is that you might be missing. So if we're looking for like the events that have the most ticket yield, the scheduled events are the ones you should go, and definitely plan them out. A sealed takes about 4 hours. A constructed takes about 4 hours. The competitive constructed takes about 8 because it's 8 rounds. So just know, like, have your day planned out if you're going to sign up for those, because they will eat up your time. But it's worth it.
Yeah, and then a couple more questions. Roughly, so that way people kind of know if they're planning their days in advance. What does side events usually run? $5, $30? Like, what's usually how it runs?
The cheapest event was definitely the Pack Rush, which was $15. Most events are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 to up to $50, depending on the length and price support. So not necessarily the cheapest, which is why Andrew makes a really good point of planning out your day to try and maximize both your time and the money that you spend. A lot of people I know will sign up for multiple events and drop as needed from events as they come up. So let's say you plan Sunday to enter the big tournament, right? The 8 o'clock constructed, 8 rounds, insane price support, and you start to do well. So as your day goes through, let's say you also signed up for a noon sealed, just in case you didn't do well at the 8 a.m. one. You just drop out of it, and then you can continue on your day. That is something that people do. But the attendee ticket is not the only bit of money that you're going to be spending that day. If you want to play in side events.
Yeah, continuing on with the discussion of side events. You guys mentioned draft and sealed. Is it only of the current set, or can I like draft first chapter? Is there like chaos draft? Is there, or is it what's the draft? What's the sealed format looking like?
Currently, and probably in up until the remainder of DLC season, it will be Shimmering Skies only. So your sealeds will be Shimmering Skies, your drafts will be Shimmering Skies. They have not made an announcement for a Chaos Draft or other sets. I don't believe Ursula's Return was there. In fact, it was to the point where I believe vendors could not sell Shimmering Skies because they were going to hand out Shimmering Skies as prize support. So there was like this rule where the vendors won't have the current set available for like packs of the current set for sale. They'll have singles of it for sure, but they can't sell the actual product.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So whatever limited event that you do, whether it's draft or sealed, will be the current released set.
Gotcha. So Chicago was also of the current set. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that is quite interesting. And then one last question about side events. Like if I'm doing a quick fire or I'm doing like the competitive constructed event, is it still mirrored to the 2-game format? Is it best of 3, 1 game? How's that structured?
So the on-demand ones, to my knowledge, were all best of 3 because they are all single elimination. So 8 people enter a draft. You play 3 rounds until you have 1 winner, and they're all best of 3. I believe the constructed side events were all 2-game format. So the ones that were 8 hours or 8 rounds, they were all 2-game format.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. Kind of keep it consistent, unless of course you have the 8-person one because can't do 2-game format with that little amount of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So beyond side events, beyond the main event, what else should I know going to a DLC? I've never been to a large tournament before. Do I just bring my deck and dice and maybe a piece of paper? Like what do I do? What should I bring? You know what do I do?
So I would say the most important thing when you go to a tournament, let's say that you're entering the main event of DLC Vegas.
Mhm.
You want a bag that can hold your deck, that is just your deck, preferably in new sleeves. You don't want any extra cards just to avoid any possibility of there being,
Like a judge call against you or something?
yeah, just to avoid any unnecessary issues. You don't want to have any cards that are not part of your deck with you, or at least in
Mm,
the same box. A playmat is good because it is the main event. It is competitive rules enforcement, so you want to have a notepad or a piece of paper, something to write on and something to write with, so that you can keep note of your lore count. I personally would include some snacks, something like trail mix or
yep.
granola bars, um, something small and manageable that you can eat in between rounds, so that way you're not tired and hungry and distracted, 4 hours into your match. A water bottle is really useful. You can put a little bit of Gatorade or some tea in it to keep yourself hydrated and caffeinated. And that's probably it for the main event. Maybe a light jacket that you can put away somewhere in case you get cold, because most events tend to be air conditioned. But yeah, that's for the main event. That's what I would suggest. Side events are a lot looser. You can take some trades because there are people constantly looking for things. You might be on the hunt for
Mm,
something. Extra sleeves for limited events is probably good. Again, at for side events, it's not competitive in the sense of rules enforcement, so there's a lot more leeway in terms of what you can have on you at any given time. But yeah, snacks, water, a bag to carry everything tends to be really useful. And then if you're entering the competitive event, uh, try to keep just what you need for the tournament explicitly with you, not anything superfluous.
I second all of that. One, I would highly encourage everyone to use paper and pen. You don't necessarily need to bring it. You'll get one of these. They have them out. They'll hand them out to you. You just go to the place where you get your badge and ask for some paper. They will give them to you. They're branded. So so pen and paper is highly encouraged. Definitely bring extra sleeves. In the event that you get a judge call and they want you to replace your sleeves, you better have sleeves on hand. The vendors usually have them, but if they are not the ones that you like, you should bring the ones that you like. Even if it's just like a couple of extra for just like if one of them gets dinged or cracked or anything like that or damaged, like you just want to prepare for the worst possible scenarios. If you are a double sleever, bring inner sleeves. Very important. If you are going after one of these, bring a mat tube. They do not sell them. And if they do sell them, they sell out very quickly. And
Really?
the thing about this mat is that the silver foiling does come off if there's a lot of friction. So if you are wanting one of these and you want to keep it as pristine as possible, bring a mat tube. Highly, highly encouraged. I think my last bit of recommendation would be have a budget. There are going to be so many ways in which to utilize money at this event. Between the side events, between the vendors, between all the cool stuff that you'll see around you. The next one's in Vegas. I mean, that's going to be a budget of different proportions, but bring a budget. And a lot of the vendors are cashless, so you don't necessarily need to like bring cash on hand, but you should have a number that you want to spend and be set on sticking to that, because if you're from an area where you just don't see a lot of singles, you will see vendors that all of a sudden have singles. There's that foil Clarabelle that you didn't see before. Here's this enchanted that you didn't have. All of a sudden, like, here's a vendor with like 60 enchanteds and you're missing like 12 of them and you want all of them. Well, here they are. Or like even some really different stuff that you didn't expect. They sell pins, they sell mats, they sell the Champion Stitch mat, they sell the Champion Ursula mat. They had some mats from the convention promo, the conventions, like the 6-panel character mats. I picked up my D23 Sorcerer McGee from one of the vendors. You will see stuff that will catch your eye, and be ready for that. Lastly,
budget is such a good idea.
That's a good shout out.
That's really good.
Lastly, if you are looking to move stuff, the vendors do accept trades and do accept like they will buy cards from you at a reasonable price. It depends on the vendor, of course. That price does fluctuate throughout the course of the convention. I found that the prices tend to be better before the DLC. So if you're trying to unload some stuff, do it on the Friday, and then probably don't trade on Sunday because they are taxed. They have bought everything that they want to buy, and there's not really much of a demand as high as it was before the event. So if you are looking to move some stuff in your collection or pick up some stuff, that's probably the time to do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As somebody who's been to a lot of events, there's always that one person who's like, yeah, I'm missing like 8 crucial cards to my deck and the tournament's tomorrow, so I need to buy them today. So it makes sense that the vendors buy before the event at a decent price, but after the event, you don't really need the cards as much, so you can buy a little cheaper. One thing I also kind of want to mention, something useful to bring too, is a phone charger or a portable battery. I don't know how far your hotel is going to be from the event, but it would definitely be a shame if your phone were to die all of a sudden and now you can't contact your friends for dinner or meet up with them in between rounds and stuff like that. So it's always good to just have a portable charger. Obviously, you can't use your phone while playing the games, but battery goes down eventually anyway. So definitely something to bring with you.
For Vegas, right, specifically, because Vegas is the next challenge that's coming up. Ride sharing, like getting to the venue, know where the venue is, know where the food options are. Unfortunately, Vegas isn't as walkable a city compared to something like Toronto or Seattle, which is coming up. So knowing the public transportation routes, having apps for ride sharing, comfortable shoes for walking. It's going to be the end of September in Vegas, so it's probably still going to be really warm.
Yeah.
So plan, sunscreen, a hat, a jacket for when you go into the air-conditioned event hall after you come outside of the 100-degree heat Vegas. Those are all really useful things to have. Like, one of the awesome things about Toronto was the public transportation system. There was trains, subways, buses, rail cars. So, and the city is incredibly walkable. Everything was very close by. So knowing like the public transportation routes, where the bus can pick you up and can take you to the hotel if you need it, or where to go get food, things of that nature. Unfortunately, that's not going to be true with Vegas. Seattle is more walkable than Vegas, thankfully, so that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, dress comfortable, wear thin, multiple layers, um, and plan to be exposed to extreme heat and extreme cold.
Yeah, that's good. And also, ask locals. Like, if you don't know what's good to eat, ask the locals. I've gone to plenty of good restaurants where I just asked somebody who worked there or a local, like, hey, what's good, and discovered good cheap places. But I think we all three failed to mention the most important tip about going to a DLC, and that's like, comment, and subscribing to Team and Ambitions, because how else would I learn this wonderful news without doing those things? So that's the most important tip. Remember to do it. I think we pretty much covered the topic here. So, Javier, Andrew, I'd like to thank you. And Andrew, I'd like to thank you for letting me take over for the foreseeable just now. So, yeah, I had a blast. I actually didn't know a lot of information. So I thank you guys for providing that. I was very interesting because Vegas will be my first DLC challenge. So it's good to know some sort of this information beforehand. If you see us there, say hi. We're very friendly people. Actually, we'll all be there. We'll be in these very cool jerseys. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say we
you
get our jerseys for that one, right?
yeah, I'm very excited. Hashtag shout out to Drew Bacard. He is a teammate, good friend, and a wonderful jersey maker, and he makes our merch. So shout out to him. But yeah, don't be afraid to say hi. We are friendly. We will, sign your babies and kiss your cards or whatever you want. We don't judge. But yeah, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time in the next video. Bye.
Good night, everybody.